all these different textures, all these different materials. It's like spreading your wings and flying.
It's kind of like standing in the doorway of a candy shop. Differences popping out of shapes, of values.
And then paint them, and then cut them, and then stack them, and then stretch them. And what? These are, nylon stockings?
Playing, really, just trying anything.
In making sculpture, it's a little bit slower than painting, where you could make a big move, not knowing what's going to happen, and that sense of discovery. It's what keeps me going, keeps me coming back.
Hi, Academy members. I'm Amy, and I'm so excited to be in the studio of Heidi Marie Faessel today. We're doing an inspirational interview. Heidi's a multidisciplinary artist who lives and works in Whitefish, Montana. And today I had the pleasure of driving up here through open, snowy Montana valleys and forests and mountain views, and landed here in this incredible studio. Thanks for having us.
I'm so excited you're here. This is going to be fun.
I know, it's going to be really fun. We've already been having fun, so I'm glad to include everybody now.
Sounds good.
I first saw Heidi's work in 2022, and I was blown away. She's got a body of sculptural work that's incredibly curious, textural, beautiful, organic, and Heidi's also a painter, and we'll learn about the other mediums that she works in as well. I'm really excited about exploring the multidisciplinary angle of your work, because in the Academy we tend to focus on painting because it's such an easy way to learn and to practice the Art2Life principles, but I think your work has a lot to show us as far as enriching how easily we can cross boundaries with those principles and kind of broaden our creative scope.
Terrific.
Yeah. So let's get started. We always love to learn a little bit about artists' backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And because a lot of your sculpture incorporates fabric, I thought it might be nice to follow that textile nugget in your creative history and just learn a little bit about that. Because you went to textile design. You studied textile design. How did that all come about?
I did. I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City and got a degree in textile surface design. And I landed there because even though I was painting at the time, a lot of the paintings that I was doing had a pattern to them, pattern-heavy designs. So I thought, well, this will be a way that I can actually learn a profession and earn a living and make some, have a creative career, basically. And so that's how I ended up at that school.
Yeah, so you had been painting prior to that. Was painting
just on the side, in high school, and as a kid, loved to draw, loved to make things. I did have a grandmother that I was close to that taught me embroidery and crochet, and she sewed, without patterns. She could just cut newspaper and make a pattern and make a dress or something out of it. She was amazing to watch.
Sounds like a true inspiration.
A real inspiration. Yep. Anyway, that's how I ended up in the textile design world.
Yeah, where did that take you? How did that?
So after I graduated, I did work in the home furnishings industry in New York City for about 6 years, designing bed and bath and window products for department stores and such. So, yeah.
And living in New York City.
Which was amazing. I continued to take a lot of classes after I graduated and had a job, taking a lot of classes in all kinds of different disciplines. I also spent a lot of time, just absorbing all the arts that were available to me, the museums, the dance performances, theater, all the design and,
So
galleries
much to see.
and all of it being top notch. It's like, so you're being exposed to the best of the best. So I do consider that, component of my life a real education on multiple levels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with all of that, were you able to carry on your own art practice?
I was pretty immersed in my profession and taking everything in at the time, but I always had a table set up where I could make small pieces in a sketchbook, or actually, you know what I did a lot at that time was make little pieces and send them as gift cards, like greeting cards. So it became something that I just gave away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it kept my hand in it.
Right. So
Yeah.
when you look back at that time, are there any of those classes or workshops or, the different media that you were learning about? Is there anything that stands out as something that you're either using now today or that really guided your direction and what you're doing?
I think I just think of it as like filling my artist toolbox, which I feel like is very full. And some of the classes that I did take then were assemblage, which I'm totally using that skill now. Book binding, which I would love to do more of in the future, like artist books and whatnot. And I did some work at the Greenwich Pottery House as well. So, worked with clay and explored that. Those are just a few that pop out, but
Yeah.
I did take photography and creative writing and all of those. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a full toolbox.
What a time. in
Yeah,
your
what
life,
a time. Yeah.
Right? So New York, living in New York is kind of hard to top, but
True.
did you come to Montana right after that?
I did. Talk about extremes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was
Culture shock.
wonderful. I was ready for it. Yeah.
Things slowed down quite a bit, probably.
Dramatically, but it was welcome and refreshing. And I missed the ability to connect with nature in New York City, and that had been a deep part of my earlier life. And so it was incredible to move here.
Yeah.
And have nature at my fingertips.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Southern California mainly.
Okay. So you're able to get out and
Enjoy the flora, the fauna, the ocean, the everything
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
So what brought you to Montana? Did you have a job here?
My sister had lived here, and while I was living in New York, I would come to visit in all the different seasons.
Mm-hmm. So let's see, were you able to carry on with textile design work?
I was not, actually. So when I moved here, it was a little bit of a quandary as to what to do next. So at that point, I did start a family, so that took up some time. But mixed in there, I went to the local community college and studied graphic design and learned the Adobe Creative Suite, which has really been a pivotal point in my toolbox now. So my toolbox is getting bigger and bigger, and I love being able to get on the computer and feel comfortable and have those tools in my back pocket for sure.
Yeah, it's another way to explore, isn't it?
Absolutely. And
incredible.
just in terms of doing, portfolios or catalogs or resumes or just anything that I want to make, I can just open that up and make it. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Right now you're making art full time, right?
I am making art full time.
When were you able to make that switch?
It was about 2017. I had spent quite a lot of years between, in commercial design, basically, either textiles for other people and then graphic design for customers and whatnot. So at that point, it was just feeling like I had a well that I wanted to tap, basically, of creative expression that was very limited in working for other people. So I really wanted to make that something that I wanted to focus on going forward. So then that's in 2018, that's when I took CVP.
Okay.
And that really broke me open. That's exactly what I needed at the time.
Yeah.
I knew my full toolbox was full. I knew I was going to have a lot of fun with it, but I just needed that little catalyst to break open the shell. And it totally did that. So I'm so pleased.
Wonderful. So is that about when you started working more in sculpture too?
Initially, it was mainly painting in about 2012 2020, around the pandemic, I was able to get involved in a community art project and had the opportunity to make a big sculpture. And so that was just so fun. It was hard to ignore how fun that was and how it made me excited about sculpture. And I had sort of joked to myself and others that if I ever went back to school to get my master's, it would be in sculpture, even though I hadn't really made any sculpture. I guess I felt like I knew that it was in me somehow.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of tools to maybe figure that out. So after I did that project, it was these three towers of stacked shapes, colorful shapes. I was able to secure a grant and rented some studio space. And by then we were in lockdown and not able to go out and see other people. And I just used that time and space to explore sculpture for the first time, really immersing myself. And it was fantastic. I learned a lot in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Being so focused.
That's just amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that outside influence, that global influence of the pandemic really created kind of a bubble, a free space for you to really explore and discover.
It did.
And what you ended up with was just incredible. Just incredible. So
thank you.
It worked. It was like a pressure cooker or something.
It was. Yes, indeed. I like that idea.
So I'm curious about your process. If maybe we could talk about your sculpture, just the way you approach your materials and ideas. Like, do you start with a preconceived idea? Do you do sketching? Do you do maquettes, or is it different all the time? Or how do you get started?
It's kind of a mix of all of those, really, but essentially it, I think, boils down to, curiosity and discovery. I think that's sort of at the root of my entire creative process, whether it's painting, textiles, or sculpture. So it really is sort of initiated by the materials and exploring the materials in sort of a playful, experimental way, seeing what they do, what I can do with them, how they behave. And then once I understand that, then I make some forms and then move them around and reconfigure them and assemble them in different manners. And I'm looking for something sort of cohesive that holds together as a sculpture, but they are assembled from different parts. So
yeah,
I'd say that has been like at the root of the sculptures, that sort of technique, not drawing something and then looking at the drawing and making it per se.
Right. So you have objects and maybe shapes or things that you've created in front of you, and you try out different configurations, looking for relationships, looking
correct. Thinking about texture, color, shape, and the rhythm between each. I work a lot with repetition, so taking one form and repeating it to create volume. That has worked as a technique often.
Yeah. So this is such a great backdrop for us, but to see some of these sculptures, so some of them are smaller. I know in the show that I saw of yours in 2022, and then just recently saw your show at the Holter Museum of Art. You had some really large pieces. What do you think about scale? How do you like to approach it, or just depend on the piece?
It kind of depends on the piece. With these pieces, I was sort of exploring bringing in a lot of different materials and seeing how they react and respond to each other, and also playing with form and understanding how the materials behave and interact. The pieces in the exhibit down at the Holter, they grew out of that time during the pandemic when we were in isolation. And so a lot of the things, I was thinking about certain themes at that time, and then ended up having this whole exhibit revolve around these themes, but they were around interconnection, impermanence, and transformation. And I feel like that was those are things that were happening in the world
Yeah.
at that time. And I was able to take all of those feelings and sort of put them into these objects or create these sculptural objects that evoked those ideas. So the intent was different, right? So these, I was exploring materials and mixing materials, but in that exhibit, I had really dialed in the materials I was using and thinking about themes and responding to those themes in the work.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
So you were able to really think about that work as a body of work.
I do, and I did, yes.
Yeah, yeah, and it definitely shows. I mean, it's just so cohesive, and even the palette was
Let's
very cohesive.
talk about that. I want to actually say something that might be of interest is that when I was first making those sculptures during lockdown, I hadn't really made a lot of sculpture before. So what I found was by minimizing the color palette, I was really able to explore the form a lot better. I could see the form better. As soon as you add on color, then it becomes a distraction in a way.
Yeah.
It's like if you've ever worked with clay and you've made a beautiful form out of clay, as soon as you put glaze on it, it changes it so much.
Right.
So I really stuck with that limited monotone palette, and I think it served the work well, and in a way it was a reflection of the times too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were kind of down to our bare bones of what's necessary.
It wasn't a colorful time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's so interesting.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Well, let's talk some more about that show.
Okay.
That body of work. And I just want to say that when I have seen your sculpture work displayed, it's so great because when you're standing at the edge of the room and looking at all of it laid out, there's just this beautiful clarity of the loud conversation. Mm-hmm. And, you just have all these interesting differences popping out of shapes, of values. Everything is so strong. It's kind of like standing in the doorway of a candy shop. You just like,
I love that.
Get me in there. I want a piece.
This is why it's fun to talk to artists.
Well, then you do get in there and stand in front of, you get to take in each piece. And there's just this incredible depth of quiet conversation and so much to explore in there. And you get a real sense of the kind of time spent and sort of discovery that you went through. And there's all these surprising materials. Mm-hmm. I love how just the materials and the color, like we're saying, speak to that shared experience that we all had with the pandemic. But what a great interplay of materials and stuff. And maybe we could talk about some of the different materials that you were enjoying working with and just how things evolved.
The exhibit had a mixture of using like everyday materials and salvaged materials. So everyday materials were the materials that were easily found at hand during that time, baling wire, cotton cord, nylon stockings, scrap textile from your basement or rag bin, t-shirts that I salvaged that were stained and dirty and no longer needed, paper pulp that, I sourced from different places. But these were things that were accessible to me, right? So I love that as a place to start with making sculpture. And one of the surprises that came out of that was that I found that nylon stockings actually made some really cool forms. And there are artists that have made wonderful things out of nylon stockings, so I'm definitely not the first, and I am inspired by them. But it was really fun to use them in their natural form at first, and stuff them and stretch them and tie them in knots and then paint them and then cut them and then stack them and then stretch them and then add more paint and then graphite and It's just a wonderful exercise in creativity and exploration and experimentation to take one material and see how far you can take it and
Yeah.
how far you can manipulate it and kind of disguise it along the way. So in the beginning, it was recognizable, what the material was. But some of the
You had
later
that nude
pieces,
color.
yeah, some of the later pieces, you might see something hanging on a wall and not know what the heck it's made out of and go have to read the tag and you're think, what? These are, nylon stockings?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love
Yeah.
that. It's very mysterious and it's very transformative.
Well, and I can see how that was a fun challenge for you too. I mean, obviously you're starting with those materials and playing, really, just trying anything. Because
Absolutely.
you didn't need the stockings to behave like stockings. You were just
Correct.
seeing
I
what would
can't
happen.
emphasize the playing part enough. And there's such a mindset that goes into playing with material or paint or whatever, to really let go of outcome and to give yourself the gift of time to sit and play,
Yeah.
not having an outcome and not feeling like it's a waste of time if you don't come up with something or have an epiphany or anything. It's part of exploration and experimentation, and you learn things along the way that you can then apply later. So it's never wasted time, in my
Oh,
opinion.
gosh. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so great to hear.
Yeah.
Let's talk. There was a piece in the show called Strung Up.
Yes. Yes, that's a
Let's,
good one that would illustrate how I took the materials, the nylon stockings, and transformed them in such a way that you might not know what the heck that piece strung up is made out of.
yeah. What did you do? How did you manipulate the materials in that one?
Yeah, it was a matter of, stuffing and stretching and painting and pinning them together and clustering and creating like a rhythm and a volume and some slouching and some, yeah, it was just a really fun exercise in building a form that sort of had a bodily feel to it. And in a way they sort of make me feel like they're limbs. They evoke maybe limbs, and the painting, the lower portion is graphite that I applied that looks sort of like ash, and it really just points to the time I think that we were living in with so many people suffering in so many ways during COVID.
Yeah.
You know,
It is. It does come across as kind of a dark creature or a dark
a darker piece.
feeling. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I like about it is the shape is really interesting, but like a lot of the work in that show, there's all the value differences in it too, which keep it really, which make it engaging in a different way too. Just have that darkness at the tips, and it's kind of an interesting way to how value can enhance that piece too.
It changed it. At first, it was just white, and I knew that it wasn't complete. It wasn't done. And then I had used graphite in other pieces, so to apply it in a liquid form, at the bottom just was the finishing touch because it evoked ash, and ash implies something that burned. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really was subtle, but it changed the entire piece and was the finishing touch.
Let's talk about the creature. That piece has an incredible story.
It's definitely a favorite, and it is one of my favorites for sure. The creature is a large-scale form that is sort of a mashup between a nature form, an abstract form, and it's sort of like a little bit off kilter, and it's sort of lumpy and it's sort of twisting, and it has the quality of maybe an animal morphing, or I'm not sure. But what makes that piece so special is that I had made the form, and it was during that period where had the stay-at-home orders. And one afternoon, I went down to my basement. Just, I don't know what I was doing down there, but I discovered a box of old journals that I kept. I'd been an avid journal keeper for since I was about 10, and I don't know if it was the times or my mood or what, but I did something crazy. I tore them to shreds. Yeah, and had this big bucket of shreds, and then made a paper pulp out of it,
It's
and
amazing.
then added pigment to the pulp, and then applied that like a skin to this sort of animal nature abstract form that I eventually called the creature.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, if you walk around the piece, you'll see that there is a large open hole or cavity in the back of that object, and it is quite mysterious and a surprise, I think. And what I can say about that is that at the time, I was thinking so much about what happens after. There's so
Sure.
many people that had died as a
Yeah.
result of COVID and were very ill. And, I was thinking a lot about that is the biggest mystery of our human existence, is like what happens after. So the cavity represents the void. And in my mind, they're directly related. The void is the mystery
Mm-hmm.
of what happens after.
Yeah.
It's a pretty powerful piece.
It is. It really is. I love the journal um, part of that piece because
Mm-hmm.
it's such an interesting way of getting a real piece of yourself
Mm-hmm.
over so much time
Mm-hmm.
too, embedded into that piece. It's kind of fascinating,
It
just
is.
metaphorically.
It's true. It's true. It's probably the most conceptual piece that I made. The fact that it has such a story and is literally made of me, of my experiences, of over decades.
Yeah.
And I just, sort of put an end to the journals and transformed them into something else,
Yeah.
which is one of the themes that I had been thinking a lot about anyway. So
Right.
it just seemed to fit.
Did that feel like a risk to you?
It did feel like a
Taking that?
risk. I have to admit that I did pause at one point and ask myself, am I doing the right thing here? And the only thing that popped in my mind was, well, I might be cheating my 80-year-old self out of going back and reading
Yeah.
and tracing the thread of my life through those books. But in the end, I felt that it was okay to let them go. And
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful thing to exercise, is letting go.
Yeah. What a leap you took on that one.
Yeah, a
That's
big leap.
so fun.
It felt great. It felt great. And once you take one big leap, the next one is you're capable of taking the next one,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you prove to yourself you can.
Isn't that true?
It's true
And
in
you're
life.
surviving and you're creating beautiful things with it. So
Yeah.
so that one you transformed. You made a transformation of material
Mm-hmm.
on that one, but also the interconnection is kind of interesting. That theme of your
Mm-hmm.
show, just putting yourself on it, on that armature. But I also love how it's kind of, you mentioned it looks a little bit like an animal, but just the other day I was looking at a photo of that piece and I thought, well, it looks like a bear to me.
Yeah,
But
because it looks like little ears on
yeah,
top.
little
Yeah.
ears, dark figure. But again, it's kind of that interconnectedness with nature,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course you could take that to the void of what
Mm-hmm.
you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So really, really successful piece.
Thank you.
And then the other material that you're using in that show, which I just adore, is the t-shirts that you mentioned, the fabric.
Yeah.
You did a ton of different things.
Yeah, again, it was taking a material that was at hand, available, and plentiful. And at first, I just gathered T-shirts from my family,
Uh-huh.
and then as I got going with these T-shirt works, then it was friends, and then the community, and and what I think I love about the material in and of itself is that it's like it's a potent material because people wore this fabric,
Yeah.
wore these clothes. And certainly we've all had those experiences where we've put on grandpa's coat and we could feel grandpa or a friend or whatever, like somehow energy is embedded in material, right?
Yeah, that's interesting because we think of old T-shirts as junk, maybe, but they have a history.
Yeah. Well, matter holds energy.
Yeah.
From a scientific view, nothing is solid. It's actually very, very small particles spinning around each other and energetically, and they just appear solid. It's fascinating. So,
Yeah.
these are the things that I think about, with the fabric, is that it holds the energy of the person as well. So that's another example, just like the nylon stockings, where I started in one way, primarily taking them apart, ripping them, dipping them in house paint, because again, that was available to me, and then taking this basically raw material and creating objects from these t-shirt strips that were pigmented in black. And so the first pieces were black, and I tried to make different shaped objects from them. And then I challenged myself to move away from black. And then the question is, well, what color? Right? But then I went back to the monotone theme that I had been working in, and was able to do a few pieces in shades of gray, which really, I think, were successful and appealing in the end.
Yeah, I think so too. There's the ombre bundles was one I particularly like, how you were able to kind of stack the t-shirts, or I don't know if those were torn ones or not, but you just created this whole odd compacted kind of shape with those t-shirts. But then you made again, you're playing with values, and it just ends up so beautiful, really. Yeah, I wanted to ask you, as you were creating that body of work, did you have like 20 things going on at one time that you were spreading yourself between, or did you tend to focus on one piece at a time and move on to the next, or do all the t-shirt pieces at a time? Or
I wish I could be that organized. No, it was complete chaos, starting out with probably more than 20, and then it whittled down to 20, and then because I weed out the weakest ones, the ones that aren't really speaking to me or working in the way that going anywhere, basically. So, and then I refocus my energies on the ones that have potential. So yes, I am working multiple pieces at a time, and I feel like that helps me in terms of productivity, because as soon as you lose energy on one, you can go to the next one and make decisions about it, or move it forward a little bit. I have noticed that in making sculpture, it's a little bit slower than painting, where you could make a big move and change the whole thing pretty dramatically. I feel like with sculpture, it's like a lot of steps. There's like drying time in between. So it's a natural time, if something is wet, to go focus on a different piece, and then take it the next step forward.
Yeah.
And so it was a really nice system of working.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was all interconnected, basically, and interwoven.
Okay. Okay. So that body of work, which I think is mostly the work of yours that I've seen, you've had your way with it, kind of, right?
Yeah.
So do you have new materials that you're interested in, or that you're, as far as the sculpture goes in your work, because you do other things as well, and we'll get into that, but do you have fresh materials on your horizon, or?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure if I'm done with those materials forever, but I definitely like the idea of expanding my material base and my material repertoire, or however you would say it, like having more materials to draw from.
Yeah.
So expanding that material vocabulary. So like some of these experiments added in other materials that I'm interested in using again, and basically, I'm really interested in just mixing materials at this point.
Yeah.
So expanding what I've already done, adding more materials in.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot of playing around with what if.
Oh, over and over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not really knowing, having a sense of things, and trying a lot of things out, some of which work and some of which don't, but all of which informs you on some level. And, just doing that gut check. One of the things I remember from CVP is like, is it a hell yes?
Oh, yeah.
And I love that. And it's amazing how much I use that in my life, even just, if it's I want to go to the movies or not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you really ask yourself that question, you can gauge your, where you are on the scale of how much you love it or not.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so
right.
true.
So I definitely incorporate
one.
that, into my work in the studio, because I will get a good feeling like, ooh, I like that. I like the way it feels. I like the way it came together. It just feels right.
Right.
So a lot of intuition.
Yeah. That's how you know also that you're getting closer to finished.
Right? True.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about being able to say something is finished. Right. How did that go for you with those sculptures? When you were making them, you didn't have like a deadline of, you didn't have a show set up.
I wasn't sure if they would ever see the light of day. And I didn't know if anyone would have any interest in what I was doing, because it seemed kind of far out, especially in Montana standards, So I'm delighted that I got a chance to actually, install it in a beautiful museum space. It was just a cherry on top, basically.
Yeah, that's
really,
great.
really feel so thankful about that. Yeah, but at the time, no, I had no agenda, and some pieces came together fairly quickly, and some, sat on the wall or on a table waiting for that last little finishing touch. Like we were talked about that other piece earlier with the stocking pieces that I put the graphite, liquid graphite on the end, and that was the finishing touch. So sometimes things stick around for a while before I can really just figure out what is it that it's missing,
right,
to really, make sure it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that happens with painting a lot too. And I want to talk about your paintings, because you're an amazing painter. And it's so great to be in your studio today, because there's this is happening beautifully behind us. But the other side of Heidi's studio is covered with some amazing works in progress, which we'll see, we'll get to see too. But it's kind of the same with the paintings, isn't it?
It is. It is very, very much the same. Yeah, you can reach a stage with them and then not really know how to make it better. But also knowing it's not done. It's kind of a painful stage, honestly, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, we talked about faith earlier.
We did. It's almost like the more paintings you have made, the more you know that there's a way through it, and there's a cycle of making where inevitably you're kind of facing the unknown, or that ambiguity of, do I cover it up, or do I hang on to it, or do I do something subtle? But actually, Nick's suggestion of making a big move, I really rely on that one too. If something isn't really working and I get really trapped, sometimes that is exactly what is necessary, is to just make a big move. So
you'll get yourself something to respond to that's definitely takes you a direction.
Yeah, just mess up what you've done, so you have to go in there and fix it and change it, because you're obviously I would be trapped.
Yeah.
In a painting that I like, but it's not done. I hate that stage.
Well, that's the beauty of having a little bit of experience, is having gone through that enough times that you've seen enough paintings come to fruition and be completed and go through those phases, that you have some faith that you can get through them the next time. So we've been talking about sculpture, but your painting came before sculpture, and you've been at it a long time. What are you doing in your painting that you love?
Right now, I'm exploring just tons of line and not so much shape. And for me, that feels very energizing and energetic. And maybe it sort of corresponds to the textile, where I ripped everything apart and created these long, pieces that I then wound and stitched. And I mean, there does seem to be some sort of interplay between those two ideas.
Yeah.
So that's one of the main things that I'm seeing in the paintings right now.
Yeah. You definitely are a multidisciplinary artist, and I'd love to just explore that angle a little bit. We were talking before about how you do paintings, but you don't necessarily think of your sculptures as surfaces that you want to paint.
True.
I mean, not the same way you would approach a 2D
It's true.
wall piece. But they obviously inform each other, because as I'm sitting in your studio, I can definitely feel that this painting of Heidi's is related to these sculptures of Heidi's. There's something about the vernacular it's your voice. But how do you see it? And do you paint at the same time as you're working on sculptures? How do you
like
manage
the rhythm of it all?
Yeah.
That's actually a good question. I guess I could say just right off the bat that I enjoy having all of these mediums to work within, because it's completely freeing, because I can reach towards each thing depending on my mood or sensibilities on that day. But the other side of it is going to be completely overwhelming, because I'll have too many materials out, too many works in progress, and then I get stuck and get buried, and then I have to weed things out and rearrange things and then reassert myself. And that pattern happens over and over again. I get interested and curious about materials or something I kind of want to try, and that is the impetus to begin. And that's that sense of curiosity.
Yeah.
And I'm looking to discover something. I don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over again. And that's why when you walked into that exhibit, you saw all these different shapes, all these different textures, all these different materials. It's because I can't sit still and settle down on any one thing. And so it's a blessing, and it's kind of it can be a curse too. But overall, I do really feel like, in terms of creative expression, it's like spreading your wings and flying, because I can reach towards anything that I'm interested in on that day and spend time with that 3-dimensional sculpture, or spend time mixing paint and seeing what that feels like to, slather some thick paint on and drag a pencil through it, and just that sense of not knowing what's going to happen, and that sense of discovery. It's what keeps me going. Yeah. It's absolutely what keeps me going and keeps me coming back.
Yeah, what you just said reminded me about something that I hear a lot about in the academy, is that there are people out there, who are looking for their style, or just wanting to find that unique and authentic thing that maybe they don't feel like they're expressing yet. And for a lot of people, that translates into, well, I've got to decide what I'm going to be. Do I want to be a watercolor artist, or do I want to be an abstract acrylic painter? Do I want to be a textile sewing creator? Do I want to be a sculptor? If people are allowing their curiosity to really bloom, then they are trying a lot of things. So what would you say to people who are concerned that they're not being focused enough? That's what people worry, that I like too many things, but I think I should be focusing on something in order to express my true style.
Well, I think maybe just the idea of eventually following through and completing the project is sort of like a tipping point, right? Because I do recall being in that stage where I just made a lot of, like, years ago, before I was doing all these other careers, I would make things, but nothing was ever finished. It was like me exploring these different materials, exploring watercolor, exploring acrylic and oil paints, and a lot of that. And I learned so much. But I guess at some point, I wasn't satisfied, because I never really finished them in the way that I wanted to, right? So by moving around to a lot of things like I'm doing, it's absolutely working, but I make sure that I circle back and finish things. So I do have completed works in textile. Do you know what I mean? And completed works in sculpture, and completed paintings, because I don't give up on them. And I guess even though I don't consider myself a terribly disciplined person, I am going to say that I am disciplined enough to want to see them resolved.
Yeah.
right? If they can be. Of course, there's always those pieces that are come into your life. You make them. I can't resolve them, but I've learned so much from them. So the way that I look at that is that piece taught me something that I'll apply to another piece in the future. You just have to know yourself, right? Whether it's that it was an experiment that you're going to learn from, or if it's something that you really feel like you could finish and call it good, right?
Right, right. There's that sort of that balance of sticking with something to see it through, and then also just that power of letting go on some things.
Now, it's life.
Yeah.
Like when do you let go of things, people, objects, relationships, jobs, whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it's really hard to make that decision when to keep going and when to stop.
Yeah. Let's see. I know that you've had some collaborative art projects. Oh, well, the show that I saw in 2022 was a collaborative show with you and one other artist. But you've done other collaborative things, right? Is that something that's important to you?
Actually, it is. What I've found is that it's so much fun to do things with other artists.
Yeah.
And just that collaborative, creative energy, it makes it all worthwhile. The whole Art2Life thing. It's like, I think that I value that way up there on the scale of being an artist, is that connection with other artists and what we can create together. And the experience of making something together, an exhibit, or piece, whatever it is, it helps me keep going, being involved with other artists.
Yeah. It is kind of your studio is amazing, but I would imagine that after spending a lot of time in here alone, it'd be really great and energizing or enriching to be doing things with other people too.
Absolutely. I really enjoy studio visits. I actually do invite people to my studio periodically. Usually I'll have like a very intense period where I'm making. And then once I get things in kind of looking like something that might be happening, then I will invite people to the studio. And it's fun to get feedback and to have conversations and just to mix up the energy. And it is helpful in terms of communicating about your work. I've really found that that it's helpful to find words and phrases and helps you articulate what you're doing, how you're doing it, because people inevitably ask you questions that you didn't think of.
Yeah.
And then later, if you do get a chance to show it, or somebody wants to buy it or anything like that, you're not starting from scratch in the conversation. You've had all these little prior experiences that you can draw from in talking about that piece.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
So you try and coordinate studio visits like with other artists or even groups of artists, or just all the above?
All the above.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's it's always artists. Sometimes it's neighbors that are curious about what I'm doing. Or I've had, my kids just graduated high school last year. They went off to college, but I had high school friends of theirs come as groups. And that was so enriching for me to hear their perspective, to hear their intelligent questions, to talk to them about life and materials and themes that I was thinking about, and ask them about their lives. And it's been really great, great. So
I love
just
that.
wanted to insert that the talking with other people about your work really has a lot of benefits to it that you might not think about right off the bat.
Right. I think especially when we're working on things, we can get a little insecure.
Oh, and tunneled in.
Yeah, and tunneled in, and getting another perspective, or like you say, just being able to converse or having to converse.
Yes.
Is maybe a really interesting and great way to move things along.
I think it is.
Yeah.
It can be.
I love that. Oh, one thing I wanted to ask you about, and this is something that most of us as artists have to figure out, is like the financial roadmap to being an artist. And it's so unique for everybody. But I can imagine that selling sculptures is more challenging than trying to sell a painting, or is it? And what's your mindset about the business side of what you do?
That's really interesting. I think that I've pretty much just focused the last, 5 or 7 years, really dialing in, making the work, connecting with other artists, and exhibiting whenever I possibly could, and not really thinking about the sales part too aggressively, because I really wanted to just develop my work.
Yeah.
I really want to sell my best work.
Yeah.
I don't want to let things out of the studio that I don't feel good about. So there's that component. The other part is like, yes, sculpture is much harder to sell, and especially sculpture made out of such unusual and ephemeral materials. It's one thing buying a sculpture that's made out of steel or bronze or ceramic, glass, these traditional materials. But these untraditional materials, I don't know how that's going to go. But that really wasn't the point in making them. The point in making them really was to exercise my creativity and take my creative exploration as far as it could go. So in that way, those are a success, regardless if they ever get sold. And I have sort of been lucky to sell some paintings somewhat regularly so that I could have some income to offset the cost of having to purchase some materials and a studio space. And in addition to that, I have been received several grants. So that is a source of income.
Excellent.
Yeah. So, and then I'm hoping that once my work especially the paintings are flourishing even more, that maybe I would like to collaborate with some sort of sales outlet, whatever that could be, because I make them to let them go. I don't want them to be in storage forever.
Yeah.
So
that's such a great thought, making them to let them go, because we make art to share it, really. We need to get it out into the world.
And it feels good when it goes.
Yeah.
If you have that experience of someone really loving a piece and wanting to live with it, it is very special.
Yeah.
You just never forget that feeling of someone saying, I really want that piece. I want to hang it here. I want to look at it every day.
It's almost like full circle.
It is.
Like
it absolutely is.
Making it complete. It's been really wonderful chatting with you, Heidi. Thank you so much. And I do want to make sure we learn what you're up to now. What are you looking forward to next? What's in your near future?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, I'm working toward an exhibit this summer, July and August, down at an art center in Bozeman. And will be a solo exhibit as well. And there was no proposal for it, so it can be anything I want, which is kind of exciting. So this is going to be a fun, winter, thinking ahead to that and
especially
working toward
for a
it.
Multidisciplinary artist.
Yes. I might be envisioning colorful paintings and colorful sculpture. That's interesting to me right now, is going from the monotone sculpture to asking myself, what would colorful sculpture look like?
Yeah.
So that's a curiosity. I'm collaborating with an artist or two for exhibits in 2026. So hopefully those will come to fruition. And I think the things that top of mind in terms of the artwork are, the colorful sculpture I'm curious about, and we'll be moving towards. I'm curious about sculptural paintings,
Nice. Okay.
right? So what if I took the paintings and made them more sculptural? That would be an interesting direction to go. More three-dimensional.
Okay.
Right? It might be worth a try, worth playing around with.
Yeah.
And collage. Yeah, so I definitely want to keep the ball rolling in terms of exploration.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see. That's
Stay
so great.
tuned.
Well, yeah. That's so great. What an inspiration, just your answer there about what's possible. And just thinking about all your work and how it seems to be really driven by curiosity. I think it's something that we all can really hold with us as we're working in the studio. So thank you so much.
It's a good guiding light.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
thanks, Heidi.
Thanks, Amy. I'm so glad to have done this with you.
Excellent. Me
Terrific.
too.
Yeah.